In the monsoon session, we will legislate the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, which is going to create a total behavioral change amongst all these companies who collect data from India. So, what was said on your show that I am very worried about technology, data being transported and exported, will come to a grinding halt. People cannot export data, people cannot misuse data, there will be no exploitation of personal data anymore after this bill is passed.
आप पे आरोप है कि आपने PUBG बैन किया.
हाँ.
That's true.
बैन किया है और हम हमारा in a sense duty to all of you is to keep the internet safe. We want to make sure that for the 120 crore Indians who are on the internet is always safe and trusted. And therefore, PUBG ka ban was justified, but BGMI has been unbanned. So I think people who are very keen on that format of battleground gaming are happy. And then, of course, there is Call of Duty and all of those other things still there.
You're saying Call of Duty, BGMI. It's cool.
Today's guest is the Minister of State for Entrepreneurship and Skill Development and the Minister of State for Electronics and IT. When I headed into this podcast, I was expecting that I'll have a non-political political conversation like I've had with all the other cabinet ministers. But the moment the camera started rolling, Rajeev Chandrasekhar sir's layers shed off, and I felt like I'm talking to an engineering college senior. He came down to my level and spoke to me about technology, about the future of technology, about the future of India, about geopolitics, and about countless other subjects that you're going to enjoy through the course of this particular episode. This is just two engineers nerding out, basically. I'm sure you're going to get to learn a lot from this one. Big thanks to Sir. Big thanks to MyGov for teaming up with TRS and helping us produce this incredible series of cabinet ministers featured on non-political, political podcasts for the first time on the Indian internet. Here we go with one of the most knowledge-packed episodes from our recent series. Enjoy.
Rajeev sir, pumped as hell to talk to you.
Okay.
I've been holding that back
Great.
and trying to be formal with you, but
Okay.
I'm too pumped about talking to you.
Great. I'm getting pumped as well. As you are getting pumped, I'm getting pumped up as well.
No, this is amazing. I never thought I'll be talking to someone of your stature about the kind of subjects that the internet wants to hear Indians talk about.
Good to talk about those.
So you went to America, you had a career there, you came back, you had an entrepreneurship career, and now you have a political career. And I think everything that you used in your technology career and your entrepreneurship career, you're somehow bringing to the world of politics. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it is about only that, but I think what you learn as you grow up, you finally bring to bear when you get an opportunity to serve your country and your people. So certainly my life's learnings are helping me in politics.
Yeah. You're the third chat I've done in this week of political chats for myself. And one thing I've noticed in common about yourself, Smriti Irani, and Piyush Goyal is that though y'all are full of work, like when I saw you guys walking around, that you can tell that there's thoughts and all that going on. But when someone engages with you, you're fully present in the conversation. And there's no concept of Saturdays or Sundays. Every day is basically the same. Lots of troubleshooting, lots of strategy. Am I right?
Yeah, look, I think the answer to that question is that we all are part of a mission. And the mission is to create a better India, a new India for newer, younger generations like yourself and those who follow you. So it is a mission. And when you're on a mission, you don't take a holiday and you don't think of a holiday. You think of doing the good work that you have to do for those who are going to be benefited by it.
Okay. I asked Piyush sir this question about how cabinet ministers operate. My assumption is that you guys are surrounded by a lot of subject experts who keep throwing problems and strategy your way. Anything else?
No, look, there are different people have different models. I personally tend to engage with a lot of people who are in the real world, stakeholders of what we are doing. And that is the best way to understand what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, what the gray areas are, what people have understood, what we have not understood. So I don't surround myself with experts. I think everybody today on the internet is an expert. You are an expert, and so are most of your viewers. I always tell my officers that an 18-year-old knows more about tech today than any grey-haired bureaucrat or indeed a subject matter expert. So we tend to engage with a lot of youngsters because I think they know more about what the future is going to look like than anybody with any PhD or any so-called subject matter knowledge.
Would you be open to a bunch of 22-year-olds working with you?
Yeah, we do it all the time. For example, every policy that we do, every rule that we come up with, any strategy that we come up with here, we engage with youngsters. For example, online gaming, we did not just deal with online gaming companies. We brought a whole group of gamers who range from 14-year-old to 28-year-old who are gaming experts, and they gave us a perspective that certainly no gaming company could give. So I think it is part of what we have to do to listen to the young Indian and be, in a sense, enlightened by how much they know and what they know.
Okay. Have you ever watched Aapki Adalat?
Yes, of course.
आप पे आरोप है कि आपने PUBG बैन किया.
हाँ.
That's true.
हाँ, बैन किया है और हमारा इन अ सेंस ड्यूटी टू ऑल ऑफ यू इज टू कीप द इंटरनेट सेफ, to keep the internet trusted. And while we love innovation, we love what young Indians and indeed youngsters all over the world are doing, we also have an obligation to make sure that things are not bad, things are not unsafe, things are not mistrusted. So there are certainly interventions where we will intervene and say this is not good, and we will lay out very transparently the criteria for why it's not good. We want to make sure that for the 120 crore Indians who are on the internet is always safe and trusted. And therefore, PUBG ka ban was justified. But BGMI has been unbanned. So I think people who are very keen on that format of battleground gaming are happy. And then, of course, there is Call of Duty and all of those other things still there.
You're saying Call of Duty, BGMI. It's cool.
No. So I think, look, gaming is certainly part of the lifestyle of younger Indians and youngsters all over the world. And we certainly don't want to be sitting there and playing an old grumpy uncle or old grumpy grandfather and come in the way of that. But we have a duty to not just to the country, but to all of you as well, all the youngsters as well, that we have to make sure that what is out there is not addictive, does not disrupt your lives, it does not create harm for others. For example, women gamers, many games are hostile environments for young girls who want to be also gamers. So we certainly will do our bit in intervening. These type of issues should not be there in your game.
Okay. Two-pronged question. One is, how do you look at the world of gaming? Because the world of gaming is extremely excited about where it's going, especially financially.
Yes.
Be it the gaming content creators, competitive gamers, or even gaming entrepreneurs, people are extremely pumped about where Indian gaming is going. So are you guys aware about it in the technology ministry?
Oh, absolutely. And that is why we recently came up with these rules that have creating a framework so Indian games can grow. Indian gaming companies can grow. I know Call of Duty and there are so many gaming labels and games out there. But I also want, and the Prime Minister also wants, that in the next 5 years, there are more and more Indian games.
Right.
We are gamifying Indian stories, Indian scenarios. So I am very confident that over the next 3-4 years, there will be multi-billion-dollar gaming entrepreneurs, gaming startups that come out of India, and that gamify stories that you and I know as youngsters, or if you don't know it, at least I know as a youngster, that can be beautifully gamified. So there is a tremendous amount of potential that we don't have to go to Call of Duty. We can do an equally exciting product or a game that is really India-based.
Call of Kurukshetra.
Perfect.
Where you get to...
Yeah, exactly. There are so many stories in our history of battles, valiant battles, Rana Pratap, Shivaji. There are so many of these stories that can be gamified that I believe that while the formats may be similar, that the Indian stories, the stories that you and I have heard when we were children, and can have a great potential of being gamified.
Yeah. Now I'll ask you the second aspect of the same question.
Anji.
What was the internal discussion? Like, did you talk to PM Modi about PUBG when it was at its peak? Like, how did you guys figure that this needs to be banned?
So PUBG is very simple. It fell afoul of a couple of things that we think should not be done. Okay. For example, the server should not be abroad. data should not be exported of consumers because it violates the fundamental right to privacy that
Hmm.
is part of Article 21 of the Constitution. You and I have the fundamental right today that our data cannot be used by or misused by anybody without our consent. So there were a lot of these types of issues that were violating your rights as a consumer and all your viewers' rights. And that is why it was done. And plus, there is an aspect of some games that are addictive, cause harm. So even on content part of some games, there are some issues that PUBG fell afoul of. So that is why. So these are simple decisions. There is no, let's say, there is no subjectivity to it.
Okay.
I don't like this game because as a criteria hai, and then based on that criteria, we take a call.
Okay. Was there any geopolitical angle?
No,
Nothing like that.
nothing like that. Geopolitics is only to the extent that data of Indian consumers cannot leave the country. To that
Gotcha.
extent, that there is a geopolitics in
Hmm.
it, and that is a violation of the constitutional right that you and I have.
Yeah. Okay. What about the TikTok ban?
The TikTok ban is certainly something that that we have taken a decision on that way before the world has.
Hmm.
And now countries are struggling to take a decision because it has become so ingrained. TikTok has multiple issues with it, and it is not anything to do with the fun that people have and the ability to post videos on it and so on and so forth. There are many issues about its ownership, what they do with data, what type of algorithms. We don't know visibility of what type of algorithms they are using to serve what type of content to you. So, till we are clear about the transparency of the fundamental backend of any product, including but not limited to TikTok, we will certainly not permit it in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, because while it is a nice, hip, fun app, and I've used it as well, uh, frankly, we are not clear today. Even the Americans and the Europeans are not clear about what is happening to the data that is being harvested. What type of data has been harvested? How is that data being used or misused of you and hundreds and thousands of people? So I know some young people were upset about the ban on TikTok, but I think there is sometimes a larger issue of your own security, your own data protection that needs to be addressed vis-a-vis just the convenience and the fun.
Yeah. I think it's very cool that you listen to podcasts yourself. You were talking about how you listen to Lex Friedman inside.
Yes,
There's a lot of technology nerds who are listening to this podcast
sure.
and are kind of silently clapping for you because we don't expect, honestly, people over the age of 45 to even really be in the world of podcasting. But it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is not just cool. I'll tell you, when our audience is a young Indian, my principal stakeholder today is you and those who watch you. If I don't listen to you, I would be foolish. So therefore, I am on the dark internet. I crawl around there. I listen to youngsters. I've heard just 2 weeks ago an 18-year-old boasting about how he sim cloned and hacked a crypto wallet on a chat group. So this is all stuff that I also need to learn and understand. I have absolutely look. I've done my thing in tech, but I certainly am humble enough to realize that what is happening today. There are many young, smart guys who know a lot more, and it is very very important to be plugged in, listen to you, and be respectful to those who know the future and know about tech, and engage with them because there is much to learn.
Yeah, it's crazy that a cabinet minister is still educating himself through the same content that's available for the general
Absolutely,
public.
yeah.
It's, I find that extremely fascinating. What I will ask you is about crypto. You mentioned
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's another hot topic.
Yeah.
How often do cryptocurrency conversations come up in the cabinet?
No, look, crypto is an issue that has been discussed tremendously, whether it's at the cabinet or the government or at the administrative level. Because on one hand, and I've said myself on record that crypto and the Web3 and the blockchain is something that you cannot fight. It is the inevitable future of the internet. However, crypto without some guardrails, Web3 without some do's and don'ts, represents also the ability to create chaos and
Ponzi schemes.
misuse. Yeah. So therefore, I think on crypto, while everybody loves the technology, nobody wants to come in stop the innovation on Web3. We think that the issue of whether when it's used to be exchanged into rupees and dollars, that whole fungibility and the exchange and money transfer needs to be governed by some laws.
Mm.
And unfortunately, in India, what happened, as in the US, where trillions of dollars have been lost because of the meltdown, is that people went into this and made it more of a punt, more of an investment. How much is Bitcoin today? How much will it be day after tomorrow? Instead of saying I want to use Bitcoin to transact my finances.
Mm.
So when it became a speculative asset class and a bubble, then governments had to intervene and say, look. And as a matter of fact, the way we approached this way back in March 2020, March 2021, March 22, was the reason that many young Indians, and including young Indians, saved themselves from the meltdown that happened afterwards, with all the meltdown that happened in the crypto space. Crypto is a great area. I encourage innovators to continue there, but it certainly needs some global sort of rules and like a framework before it can actually be widely used and recognized by governments.
When you meet technology ministers from other countries, do you all talk about crypto?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was in the EU recently. We had a Technology Trade Council meeting between the top brass of the EU, European Commission, and Mr. Jaishankar and Piyush and me from India. And we were talking about everything: AI, crypto, the blockchain, what is the future, how should we regulate it? Because governments all around the world are grappling with the same challenges.
Mhm.
And they are looking at India and Indians as leading the way, not just in the innovation, not just in the good, not just in the bad, but also on how to address the policies and the rules and regulations for the future.
Why are they looking at us as leaders in terms of policy?
Because of the sheer presence of India on the internet today. We are the largest connected nation in the world.
Okay.
We have 800 million Indians who are using the internet. Our innovation ecosystem is the third largest in the world, but the fastest growing in the world. And
Mm.
one thing I don't know if your viewers know, there isn't a space now in the technology economy of the world where Indians are not present.
Mm.
Just 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when you talked about tech in India, we would say IT, ITES, the Infosys, the TCS, those kind of companies that did a lot of back office work. Today, every area of tech, AI, quantum, semiconductor, microelectronics, the internet, consumer tech, every space has Indian innovation and Indian thought and Indian intellectual property. So I think there is a very, very different perception about Indians and Indian startups and Indian innovators today than what it was in 2014.
Okay. Little personal question for
Yeah,
you.
go on.
You came back from the US. You reversed the brain drain
Yeah.
in a very big way. And today you're sitting in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility for us to reverse brain drain? Like, would you actually like to send out a message to Indians who've left the country? Because I had at least 50% of my friends from engineering college left in order to either make more money or escape their families.
Ranveer, I'll give you two examples, okay? And this will be the two examples will be slightly long. First of all, you see today when Google and Meta laid off these thousands of people in the US, I had a video conference with some of them. And I said, but why aren't you coming back to India? And the opportunities are in India. And a lot of them are wanting to come back to India. It is clear in the tech space that the sunrise nation, if you want to call it, the rising nation in terms of opportunities is India. I'll give you another example. In an area like semiconductor, there's a gentleman called Jim Keller, who is the architect of Tesla's AI. Okay, Tesla's, everybody knows. He sets up two startups in semiconductor design for AI compute. Where does he set it up? In Bangalore. He doesn't set it up in Silicon Valley. He sets it up in Bangalore. The message and in a sense, the hawa is very clear that the center of gravity for the next 10 years of innovation, whichever area it is, quantum, semiconductor, the internet, Web3, crypto, India will be certainly, and Indians and startups in India will be a big force multiplier.
Mm.
So that reverse brain drain has, in my opinion, already started.
Okay.
Now, if you're retired and you're settled down in the US, they are going to settle down there anyway if you're 68. But if you're 35, you're starting out, people are choosing to start out now in India rather than go all the way to the US and be part of some large organization or small organization. So, in my opinion, the reverse brain drain recognition of India as the land of opportunity for innovation has already begun.
What do you feel in your heart about brain drain after having worked in the US?
Now, look, I certainly think that there was a time and a place for people to go abroad because there was no opportunity in India. And I use as an example what I put out in Parliament in 2012, that 97% of the Indian banking system's net worth was borrowed by 9 companies in India, 9 family companies in India. So therefore, if you and I in 2012 wanted to start a business also, you could not start it. So for many young Indians, it seemed pre 2014 that यहाँ पे कुछ होगा नहीं. There is no opportunity for me here. I may be smart, I may have a lot of smart friends, but I can't do anything here. I cannot succeed here because I don't have the connections, I don't have the last name. That has changed dramatically. 100 unicorns, 100,000 startups, everybody being able to raise capital, building out the story, succeeding, failing, as the case may be. So I think my heart tells me, and I say this, I've visited 53 universities so far since I've become minister. I say with great confidence, this is the most exciting time to be a young Indian in the history of independent India. You are the luckiest guys and girls that India has since independence, because you have opportunities, you have an enabling environment, you have capital. There is nothing to stop you from succeeding if you are working hard. If you, of course, if you don't work hard, then nothing can help you. But certainly, I believe the youngsters who watch your program are the luckiest generation in the history of independent India.
Yeah. Thanks to big bros like yourself.
I don't know if it is big bros like ourselves, but certainly it's like a planetary alignment. जो कहते हैं ना horoscope में,
Yeah,
that
fair.
some things have happened. 2014, the country elected a prime minister who really believes in the future and potential of our young Indians, and we are where we are today, where the world looks at it with such awe and respect.
Yeah.
And awe and respect not just for the country, but awe and respect for every young Indian.
Yeah, I have so much to say about this whole reverse brain drain thing. I've mapped this out in my head a lot. I feel there are successful entrepreneurs already in India who can kind of create that first invite to a lot of the engineers, especially that we see abroad.
Mhm.
Because what we're lacking is not tech talent, but tech experience,
Mhm.
tech know how. You know,
Mm.
people who've already worked at big AI companies, who've studied, who've done the MS in AI,
Sure.
MS and all these other things that you can only study in the US.
Right.
Bring back those skills here, start technology companies here ideally,
Right.
and then help the country become richer and yourself become richer by exporting abroad. Is that, I know it's a very rudimentary way of putting all this, but is that
No,
the
but it's correct. It's not rudimentary. It's very basic and commonsensical that for a young person sitting, let's say in the US, who has deep knowledge about AI, there is no way he'll come to India and want to do an AI startup, because he'll say, I'll do it in Silicon Valley. Why would I come to India? Unless there is a compelling argument for him to come to India. And we are creating that compelling argument that it is easy for you to raise capital. It is easy for you to have data sets, access to data sets. We easy to have connections with academic institutions and those who are really doing deep research in AI. So when we did India AI, what Prime Minister has announced in the budget, we didn't design it in the ministry. We created 5 groups which included startups, young students, professors, and industry, and told them to design India AI. So if you see in the next 2 weeks a big launch of India AI that talks about all these details of India and how exciting it is, I can certainly tell you, while I may be getting some credit for it, it has been done by a lot of young researchers, young startups who have said this is the way AI should be attractive, not just for themselves, but also for those who are sitting in the US who are specialists in the subject. Same thing we are doing for every area: quantum, semiconductor, all of these areas. I see today so much enthusiasm from those who are abroad, Indian diaspora in the tech space, deep tech space, to want to work in India, work with India. For example, I'll tell you, I talked about retired people. You know the number of retired semiconductor professionals who want to come now to India and teach young Indians. So reverse brain drain is not just about enterprise and startups. It's also about sharing knowledge, sharing experience. So we are now creating a adjunct professorship in all our higher education, where a retired semiconductor professional or retired quantum professional can come here and teach the young students about what he has done for the last 20 years in the US.
Yeah. little controversial statement,
yeah.
but I have a lot of faith in private education institutes.
Yeah.
I didn't have that kind of education, like when I
Mm.
was in college. So things are changing, and I feel it boils down to very high level, higher education.
Right.
I will also say that as a podcast, I get to meet people from all sections of society,
Right.
and not everyone favors the current government. Mostly people do, and that's okay. I think that is the nature of how politics is
That's
in the country.
democracy. Yes.
People are not even willing sometimes to listen to the positives of the government. I dated someone so I force myself to have a bit of a centrist perspective because I'm a media person, and I think I'm supposed to get all the sides of the argument. I dated someone who was against the government. And if I tried telling her that, listen, but as an entrepreneur, how I feel about being a part of Startup India, or just interacting with people, like I interacted with Sanjeev Sanyal. It was so cool interacting with him, that
Yeah.
people like that are working in the government. So I'm hopeful about where India is going, but you'll never be able to convince that certain section of society. And I'm hoping that the podcast at least shed some light on the truth of what you guys are doing. It feels great to be an entrepreneur. Even I'm very hopeful about the 2020s and 2030s,
Right.
because I think collectively as a nation, we are becoming a lot richer,
Mhm.
which will up the quality of life, it will up the levels of education.
Correct.
How are you guys looking at that minority, which is like criticizing you guys constantly and not even listening, or not even open to what you guys are doing?
No. Look, we live in a democracy. We are the world's oldest democracy. We are the world's largest democracy, and so therefore, some amount of dissent, some amount of pushback, cynicism, skepticism is inevitable in a democracy. But to a large part, in our democracy, for several years and decades, people have propagandized, and that propaganda has stuck in people's heads about our party being anti this or anti this or anti that. And it takes a lot of patient engagement to tell people who we really are and what our intentions are and what our ideology is. So we do that. Now, for example, I spend a lot of time now, for example, during the Karnataka election, I'll explain to you what my campaigning was like. I had about 12 programs where I interacted only with groups, small groups of people, where I would take every question, hostile, good, bad, skepticism, cynicism, based on propaganda, whatever, and answer them as any responsible public servant should. If you ask me a tough question and say, I think you are, doing this, all this is hawabaji and this is all nonsense, nothing is really happening, I will sit down with you. It is my duty to explain to you. So we really, the best way to convince anybody who is a critic is to understand what he or she is upset about, what he or she believes or disbelieves, and try and shed the truth on it. If there is certainly something that he or she thinks that we have done wrong, okay. Now, for example, there are many people who think that our approach towards Pakistan should be more about lighting diyas and being hugging and warm and fuzzy and talking peace, rather than being this tough security line. And it is a point of view, accepting that anybody who deals with Pakistan must to understand that that is not a country that is responds very well to coaxing and cajoling. So these are issues where there will be legitimate discourse, legitimate debate. There are, for example, people on the left of the economic spectrum who believe that there should be no private sector,
Mm.
and there should be all more and more government. There should be more and more socialism. That is a legitimate political ideology. But we differ with that. We think enterprise, free enterprise, private sector, youth, this is what our view of the future of our economy is going to be. Those type of disputes and discussions are legitimate in any democracy. That happens in Western Europe, that happens in the US, that happens in Japan, that will happen in India as well. But where I take a lot of time to explain to people is when they have misgivings based on false information or misinformation. Modi ji is against a community. BJP is against somebody. There is no basis for it. And I always say, you look at the last 9 years of our track record, there is no discrimination, there is equitable access, inclusion of the best kind to everybody, regardless of gender, region, geography, faith. And if you can point out one example, then I'm willing to say, fine, you are right. So that is the only way to engage. There is no reason to get angry. There is no need to get upset. Uh, as a minister, I am very, very used to a cynicism and skepticism towards politicians. And I'll give you one example to basically to sort of narrate this. When the CAA happened, my daughter, who's now 21 years old, she was in high school, and she said, "No, Dad, what is this? This is terrible, and my all my friends don't like it, and all of that." And she was ready to have a fight with me and all of that. And I invited all of them home over a cup of tea. There were 21 children who showed up. And I explained to them and I said, "Tell me, what about this is according to you controversial, or what about you according to you this is discriminatory?" But after that reasoned discussion, they were fine, excepting for one or two who really were, in a sense, invested in the left ideology and deliberately wanted to disbelieve the intention.
Why don't you give a gist of what you told them?
I told them, look, there is nothing in the CA, for example, that says this person should not be allowed, that person should not be allowed. All this is saying is those who want refuge in India from regimes that are known to be discriminating against those religions, whether they're Buddhists, they're Christians, they're Hindus, we should give them the right to have safe refuge in India, which is not to the exclusion of anybody else. There is no exclusion of anybody, of any community, any religion to seek asylum in India and seek immigration into India. So this was explained to them and they understood it. And so I think increasingly, as you take difficult decisions that have been put under the carpet for decades because people felt it is not politically correct, uh, you will always have people who basically say, no, but you're doing this for this reason.
Mm.
Okay. And this government believes that we will explain it. We are holding ourselves open to any kind of scrutiny and any kind of report carding that you want. We will give you the facts, we will give you the truth. And if you persist that despite knowing the truth, you don't want to like us, then I can't help. I can't do anything about that.
I mean, the one thing I've understood through the show is that the anti-BJP narrative is that you guys don't want minorities to...
Yeah. And I say, boss, mujhe batao na. What is it, whether it is building homes for the poor, whether it is giving water supply, whether it is where is it that we say anything that is remotely even coming into that territory?
Yeah. The narrative I've heard
Hmm.
after talking to all you guys is everyone is very, I hate using this word, but entrepreneurial. And I think India's at that point where we need to be entrepreneurial and united. But people who want to see the BJP fall will use this narrative as a marketing campaign and say that, look, these people are against
so Ranveer, I'll
minorities.
tend to explain this in a very simple way. We are trying to build, and our narrative is about the future of India.
Okay.
We are building a future that is full of opportunity and hope
For everyone.
for everyone. And that is why Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is a very important statement of intent.
Yeah.
So we are building this beautiful future where you are not limited by the system, you are not held back, you are competing globally, and we are building this story narrative about the future with our current work. But there are many people today, we are a 75-year-old democracy, there are many people who would like to pull the country back into the same old politics of the 65 years.
Divide and rule.
Divide, rule, create suspicion, create fear, perpetuate fault lines. Fault lines have existed in our societies for decades and centuries.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about the fault line. We want to talk about the future of India where those fault lines don't matter.
Yeah.
But there are people who want to constantly bring up the fault line. So, we say, and I think we are seeing in the election after election, majority of the people, if not 100%, certainly want to look at the future, look at building a better future for their children, for their next generation, rather than get dragged back into the same old tu meh about the fault lines. ये कब तक हम fault line के बारे में बात करेंगे? We have to talk about the future.
Yeah. I think there's three primary thought leaders here who are actually trying to bite at you guys. One's journalists who have just taken on that thing of being against the BJP. The second is probably some leaders of the opposition who are constantly putting forward narratives. And again, I'm not batting for you here. This is just my observation. Third is content creators. And I also feel everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But as consumers, you need to read between the lines. For me, this whole trip of talking to you guys in the cabinet, I've constantly read between the lines and I can genuinely vouch for how much you guys want to take the country forward for the next generation.
Yeah. So, Ravi, we are an interesting country in a different way. I'll tell you why. We are 1.2 billion Indians, and 1.2 billion Indians are all using the internet and will use the internet. So even if 1% have a problem with the government, imagine the number. It is 12 million. You understand? So, from an internet standpoint, having one guy say, one person on an influencer saying repeatedly negative things about the government will certainly find himself with at least 1%, 2%, which is 24 million, 36 million people.
Mm.
So, there is no such thing as a small audience in India. And so, we have done many, many experiments and trials in the ministry today. Anything that is misinformation, if you use your platform to say something totally wrong, but it is very, very explosive, it will go viral 10x, 15x at the velocity, and it'll reach an audience maybe even 100 times more than what a regular content will reach. And if
Mm.
I was sitting here and you were asking me questions and I was only abusing some opposition leaders, I can certainly tell you, you'll get more eyeballs and
Yeah.
more virality on that content.
Meme material.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is the nature of what the internet has created. The dynamics are there, that it is noisy, it is going to be extremely noisy and verbose, and on top of it we are a democracy which encourages debate and dissent. So we should not get, I don't get particularly perturbed when I put something, I get 100 people giving me gyan about what I put. You have to learn to basically blank out the toxicity, blank out noise, stay focused on what is good, what is positive on the internet. And the internet is certainly a place that if you don't go searching for positivity and get
Mm.
swayed by negativity and toxicity, you will get led astray and then get sucked into that.
Yeah.
So I always caution people, we don't want to censor, we don't want to do any of that, but use your common sense. Don't get led by the nose by somebody who's out there only to provoke, to incite. God has given us a brain. That brain should be fully used and exercised when you're trolling
Yeah.
and trolling the internet, crawling the internet.
Also, I feel you shouldn't have extremely sharp opinions. Try
Yeah.
breaking it down. Try steel manning the argument.
Yeah, no, have sharp opinion. This is not, I mean, India, like, it's very difficult for our democracy, for Indians not to have sharp opinions. Have sharp opinions, but if you're on the other side of a sharp opinion, you should have the habit of listening to it and moving on.
Right.
You don't need to get into a slugfest every time there is a sharp opinion, because then you'll be only engrossed in that.
Mm.
You will get dragged into it and sucked into this so much that you will not be able to do anything with yourself except get into the slugfest.
Yeah.
And the anonymity of internet use today on social media platform, everybody's anonymous, lends itself to much more bravado and hubris and volatility and toxicity than otherwise would be possible if you and me were sitting in a room. We may disagree, but I will not get into that level of tu meme because I'd worry that you know taekwondo or some martial art, and I'll certainly restrain myself. In the internet, that is not there. So I always tell people, look, it is the nature of the beast. Learn to live with the beast.
Very random question for you. Is Modi ji aware of all the memes that are made about him?
I'm sure he does.
And memes are also positive, by the way.
Yeah, positive,
Memes
negative.
carry like branding forward.
Look, I think anybody who is so tech involved as he is knows all the good that happens on the internet and all the bad that happens on the internet.
Mm.
All of that is real and spontaneous, and all of that is sponsored and agenda driven. So this is all known to everybody.
No, there's a lot of love in the memes also.
Oh, 100%. Look, I was with him. I had the good fortune of being with him on the Gadi when he did the roadshow in Bangalore. There is, I mean, if you had even 1% doubt about how much he's respected and loved, all you need to do is go on that 3-hour drive with him to see how people were going crazy for him. And not just the old folks or the old people, young Bangaloreans were lining up and throwing flowers and weeping and crying and screaming his name, which reminded me of some rock star type of adulation. So look, there is no doubt in my mind, no doubt in anybody's mind, including those who oppose him, that he is the most loved and respected people. And there are polls that prove that he is the most popular leader in the world. And he is being called by Prime Minister Albanese the big boss in a program in Australia. So the respect that he commands is today based on real capability, real work, real deliverable, real achievements, and a real commitment to our nation. So that nobody can take away. No meme, no troll, no nobody.
Yeah. Again, I think memes are a massive part of the times that we live in, and they're genuinely also positives.
Yeah.
Memes are not just ways to make fun or criticize someone. Memes are ways to celebrate people
Yeah.
also. So in many ways, Modi ji is become the face of many meme pages, and that's honestly a celebration from this generation. It's just that maybe the older generations don't understand the essence of what memes are. Do you follow memes?
Yeah, of course I do. And I follow so many pages with memes. People forward it to me, and I agree with you completely. I think memes are a recognition of the person, recognition of the person's work and achievement. So I think, look, like I said, on the internet, everything cuts both ways.
Yeah.
There will be adulation, there will be support, and there'll also be people trying to tear you down. But
Yeah.
that's just the nature of the animal, and I
Yeah.
think we have to focus on the positive and try and learn to ignore the negative.
Yeah. I've been at it with YouTubing for 8 years. I have released about 500 podcasts. And then recently there was a meme of me doing this, which was me nodding. Have you seen this?
No,
by
I'm
any-
not.
Okay. That was my biggest career boost. I find that so silly,
I
but
see.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
I spoke to Piyush sir yesterday about how you guys are a bit of a team,
Mhm.
and there is a bit of sports culture, for lack of a better word, and there's a captain, that's
Mhm.
PM Modi.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to compare this to maybe Dhoni. He's the captain, sets the tone for the rest of you guys, and kind of, I'd like to say, maybe professionally mentors you in some ways
Mhm.
also. Now, the thing is, after you've played as a team together for a while, your captain ends up becoming a bit of a big bro,
Mhm.
a big brother. Am I
Mhm.
right? So,
Mhm.
I would like to ask you, what's PM Modi's big bro side? Like, on a more human side, what's the emotional mentoring like?
So I have had opportunity to engage with him for some years before I became minister as a MP. One of the things about him is he's very accessible. You would not think that is very intuitive about him. Such a busy person dealing with so many complex issues would give you time to meet just an MP. But one of the sort of signature things about him is he's very accessible. The second thing about him is that regardless of where you come from, left or center, you may be well informed about a subject. When you go out there, he's all attention. You see, to a lot of people like me who are not classic politicians, this is an amazing validation that what we have to say, what we have to suggest, what our ideas are, resonate with the most successful political leader in our century. So he listens. He is very patient. If he disagrees, he'll tell you. If he agrees, he will congratulate you. And the third aspect of him, which for me personally, I have experienced after I became minister, he's very invested in each of our successes. So his guidance to us is about how we could be more successful. And I remember very vividly one of the first meetings I had after I became minister with him. And I told him I want to do this. As usual, I was blabbing and I want to do this. I want to do this. And he said, but you should also focus that you should be successful. So that gives you a sort of a focus on what his expectations of you are, that you ought to be successful, not just do work. So that he is invested in your success. He is really encouraging your success. He's rooting for your success as an individual. And he does this for every one of us 74 ministers. So I think it's a tremendous thing to learn from him, to be mentored by him, and to really, you've heard the classic adage, you must respect your leader and the leader must be respected. I think, and I have had the opportunity to work with some very smart, bright people in my life. I've interacted with Jobs, Bill Gates, Andy Grove, and I've met some what I consider really, really capable people, capable personalities. But I have yet to meet a person like Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And I'm not saying this because I'm from the BJP, nor am I saying this because I'm a minister. Truly, as an Indian, I say his capability, his thinking, his clarity, and his humanity, his humanness towards his colleagues and his party workers is just something very inspiring.
How's he done it? How's that mind
No, I
developed
think
that
that is the person he is. I think he's so confident about himself. He's so secure about his vision, secure about where he wants to go, where he has come from, that he absolutely, is very part of his nature to see other people becoming successful.
Okay.
Whether it is an Indian citizen who's becoming successful, Indian entrepreneur who's becoming successful, startups becoming successful, or indeed his colleagues in politics.
Okay.
So I think that's what for me is that I want to be successful because he wants us to be successful.
Okay. speaking about success in the cabinet, what actually defines the success for a cabinet minister? So here's my take. Again, lots of troubleshooting, figuring out how to plug holes forever through policy and have your policies worked in the long term. Is there anything else?
No. Look, in the tech space and the skilling space, the deliverables are more than plugging the gaps. It was to create this modern framework where we can have, instead of 100,000 startups, we can have millions of startups. Instead of having only consumer technology and the internet being the area for startups, we should have the next generation of tech, emerging tech, deep tech startups should be all be from India. When people in the next 5 years talk about quantum computing and then look at the next quantum computers and qubit, they talk about something from India. When they talk about AI, that is the deliverable. I don't think your viewers or you should misunderstand that our deliverables are something around the edges, that it's all about plugging holes. Not at all. We are building new India. Prime Minister's vision is not to just take what was in 2014 India and just fix something on the edges. He's basically transforming it, where every young Indian today, what he felt in 2014 is not what he feels in 2023. He looks to the future with so much of optimism. That optimism is what we have to deliver through policies, through actual work, through enabling framework. So I certainly think we know what our work is, what he expects, and what he expects is essentially lives of every Indian, in particular young Indians and women, to be transformed.
Okay. Now I'm going to speak to the engineer in you,
Sure.
which is what I think is the highlight of this conversation.
Okay.
Because you're an engineer heading the technology ministry.
Okay.
Let's speak specifically about AI.
Mhm.
Do you use ChatGPT yourself?
Yes, of course.
We had Rajeev Malhotra and Abhijit Chavda appear on the show.
Mhm.
They're both a little afraid about Indians using ChatGPT because, again, it's that drainage of data. Data's the new oil, etc. You can speak at a high level in terms of engineering on this also. So I would love for you to give your own vision of Indian AI companies. One, two, what's the real deal with GPT? Should we be afraid in the same way that we were afraid of, say, TikTok with it? And three, as an engineer, do we have the talent to actually make world-class AI companies?
Yeah, so the first thing about this is the underlying raw material, if you want to call it, for everything, including the data economy or AI, is personal data of people. In the monsoon session, we will legislate the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, which is going to create a total behavioral change amongst all these companies who collect data from Indians. So, what was said on your show, that I am very worried about technology, data being transported and exported, will come to a grinding halt. People cannot export data, people cannot misuse data. There will be no exploitation of personal data anymore after this bill is passed. So, that comes to a grinding halt. Now comes, what are the real issues with ChatGPT and AI? And then everybody has a point of view, and some people say it's great, some people say it's very bad. But with anything that is new technology and is disruptive, there will always be people who are scared of it, and there will always be people who say, no, let's exploit it. What we are saying is, today we see AI as a very big deal for a digital economy, and I use a phrase that AI is the kinetic enabler of India's digital economy. We have $1 trillion digital economy goal, and AI is certainly going to help us get there. AI innovation, India can certainly lead the world, and we are doing a number of things, including what I told you about India AI. However, it is clear, like anything in technology, and more so in AI, AI also has the potential to do bad things, much more than any other technologies thus far.
And you're saying this as an engineer?
Of course. And I have seen this. Deep fakes. I can create a video of you tomorrow with half
In
an
porn.
hour. No. I can say you saying the most abusive things about 3 of your colleagues. And it will be absolutely authentic looking. It'll be a video, but it'll be totally designed, developed by AI. It'll be your voice. So therefore, AI, we say, needs guardrails. What does guardrail mean? That we will define in the government of India, in the forthcoming Digital India Act, what are the no-go areas for AI.
Right.
So what in technical terms it's called, we will regulate this through the prism of user harm. That you can do whatever innovation you want You can create whatever platform you want in AI. You can have large language models. You can do whatever, predictive, generative AI, whatever. However, your responsibility is to make sure no harm is caused to any user.
Hmm.
So we will create these guardrails. And I think in a lot of ways, we are leading the world in this conversation.
Yeah. Did you see the Sam Altman thing with the Senate where he says that we're very
Yeah,
aware
yeah.
about the dangers
Yeah,
of
so
this?
somebody asked me, and I said, look, Sam Altman is a very bright person, and he's obviously very knowledgeable AI. But we also have our views on how AI should be regulated, and maybe both of us won't agree on everything.
Hmm.
His point that I agree with is that AI cannot be unregulated. Okay. He also has a point that the AI should not be regulated like the EU wants to regulate it on use case basis. But we have a view that we want to regulate it through user harm. He's coming here in June. He's going to meet me for sure, and we will have a chat with him, and we will share our views on it. But I am certainly not, and Prime Minister 100% is not going to come in the way of any new innovation simply because we are frightened.
Hmm.
We will embrace new innovation. We will embrace disruption, but we will create all the protection and guardrails that are required to ensure that that innovation does not disrupt, cause harm to any of our 1.2 billion Indian digital nagriks.
Is that the key aspect of your focus at this phase of life?
It is clearly Digital India Act is a very, very important part of the legislative work that we are going to do. First week of June, we plan to start the actual consultation. For the first time in the history, Ranveer, we have done consultation about a law with the people before the law was even prepared.
Hmm.
So we've done 3 rounds of pre-consultation where a lot of youngsters came in, and lawyers, young users, and they've all given us their views, and we are basically using that to architect this new contemporary law called the Digital India Act.
Okay. What do you need young engineers to help you guys with? Both in terms of the economy and in terms of whatever AI related stuff the government is doing.
2 things I think, and I say this whenever I go to colleges, universities. First of all, this is a magic moment. It is an inflection point in the history of India. It's the most exciting time for them. Embrace entrepreneurship. Don't sit around and second guess yourself. If you have an idea, you're a techie, let's say you're an agriculturalist and you have a technology idea for agriculture or health or medicine, just jump at it.
Hmm.
The worst thing that can happen is that you fail. But those 2 years, 3 years that you spend in failing will be better than any postdoctoral, PhD, masters that you will ever do.
Hmm.
So this is the magic time for entrepreneurship and startups. So that's one message I give. Second, I say to all of them that entrepreneurship and enterprise and startups is not just simply about saying, I want to start a company. You must be good in that subject. You must have skills, you must learn, read. If I have books in my office, it is not basically because I want to show off the books. It is because these books keep one current, keep you competitive, that when I go to a meeting with the EC, that I can basically say India has a perspective. India knows about the future of tech as much as they do, or if not more. So today's entrepreneurs have to be very, very smart.
Hmm.
Smart, not just street smart and business smart, but smart in terms of deep knowledge of the space that they're going to embark on. So I say these 2. A, magic moment for entrepreneurship. B, be smart, get the right skills. There are many programs today to get skills. Be skilled, upskilled, reskilled, and be very, very knowledgeable.
I'm 100% sure that you know about AI a little more than most people.
Mhm.
Why didn't we see a brown person or an Indian make a chat GPT if we are truly supposed to be one of the smartest countries, etc.? We are the techies.
No.
And what's stopping us from creating it right now?
No, AI, I must tell you, Ranveer, AI is not just about an idea. AI has, as is, why did AI take 40 years to suddenly manifest itself into something that is a touch and feel product? Why? Because one of the things about AI is 2 things are very important for AI. One is what we call data sets. Okay. The second is what we call AI compute. You need huge amounts of computing resources.
Computational power.
Computational
which is
power.
actually physical power.
It's physical computer racks of servers,
Hmm.
GPUs, TPUs.
Paisa. You need money.
Money for those racks,
Hmm.
money for those servers. And for those servers, you need data sets, which is data that you have collected from people. For that data sets, the internet should have been grown to a critical mass where everybody is on the internet and giving the data. So all this was not in place 40 years ago. That was not even in place 10 years ago. So now, like a perfect storm, the internet penetration is high. People are using more and more the internet and giving their data, and data sets are being collected in billions and billions of gigaterabytes of data are now available. And finally, because of companies like Nvidia and Google and so on and so forth, there are these GPUs and AI compute factories that have been built that can build on those data sets and create these generative AI platforms. So it requires millions of money. And those who are interested amongst your audience should read a book called Genius Makers. It is the story of modern day AI, how Google, Microsoft, Meta all fought to get to AI in the last 5 to 7 years, and how Google prevailed in a lot of ways, and then OpenAI prevailed after Microsoft made the investment because they could really build these compute capacities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Love first principles thinking.
Yeah.
And very few people can talk at this level, so I appreciate
Thank
that. The one thing I've understood through the geopolitical podcast we've done is that a lot of the technologies used by the common person, common man, common woman is first used by the military, and it's usually developed by the space agency ISRO. We've had an ISRO scientist on the show as well. One of the criticisms is that why doesn't ISRO get even bigger funding to carry out R&D, to carry out this formation of new technologies, etc.? Do you want to address that? Because does that
of
fall
course.
in your department?
Yeah, no, ISRO doesn't fall into my department,
No,
but
but-
certainly I can speak to this R&D budget argument.
Sure.
Look, it is very clear from the history of semiconductors. If you read the book Chip War, is a new book that has come out. Even the US chip industry, semiconductor industry, came to being because of the US Air Force's requirements of chips, US Army's requirements of chips for their missiles. So the model that strategic industries, strategic sectors, in a sense, drive the future of technology and the evolution of technology is a correct one. And it is the same in India as well. Why is R&D budgets not more in India? I don't think there has been any limitation in terms of R&D money. Today, if I go to the Prime Minister and say, we want another 1,000 crores in semiconductor design, he will give it. The issue has been focus. What are the strategic areas that India wants to be good at? Today, you could ask me legitimately a question, and indeed, you can ask the political class, why is it that after 75 years, we still don't have a fab? Why in India are we not able to design and manufacture semiconductors? These are legitimate questions. But those questions are questions that need to be posed to people who are in government for 65 years and what their priority was. For this government, for Prime Minister Modi ji, the future of tech is a huge, big deal because it directly impacts thousands and millions of youngsters in India. And therefore, we are doing things to create R&D, innovation, framework. Just to give you an example about R&D, since you brought up R&D, in the Semicon program of 76,000 crores that the Prime Minister has given for semiconductors, he has specifically set aside 1,200 crores for R&D. And then another 10,000 crores for creating an R&D fab, based services. So there is work going on, and I don't think this characterization that there is no money is right.
Okay, fair. I think I have one last phase of questioning,
Sure.
which is quantum computing.
Okay,
Again, both
great.
Abhijit Chavda and Rajeev Malhotra keep bringing it up on the show. They talk about it from a bit of a fear angle in terms of the first country.
There is a threshold that will be reached in terms of high performance computing. That means at some point, the investment return, that is the investment that you make for an incremental return on performance, will be unfeasible or it will not make it viable. Quantum computing comes in essentially for high performance computing. That is how it originated. Of course, there's a quantum physics part that originated many years and decades ago that basically says that the way we look at the world of technology of ones and zeros, digital or 1-0
Binary.
state, there will be a total re-architecting, redesigning of that into qubits, which is a quantum state. That it is not 0, 1, there is a quantum state and quantum states. Now, I don't want to bore everybody with the complex treatise on quantum computing, excepting to say this is a pathway or a runway to a totally new model of computing and new redesign of technology to power computing.
Let me have a shot at it just to help
Sure,
you
sure,
with
sure,
some
sure.
context. Okay. So basically, computers keep getting better as time passes.
Correct.
At some point, computers are going to get so good that they can calculate so deeply
Yeah.
that you'll actually be able to create atoms and molecules inside the computer.
Correct.
Now, what that effectively means is that the R&D, the research and development that's going on in chemistry labs and biology labs, will now be able to be done inside a computer, which is not possible on current computers because current computers work on binary systems, which is ones
Yeah,
and zeros.
yeah.
Eventually, computers are going to get so deep and so fast.
Excepting one correction, that the current track and trend of high performance computing will not lead into quantum computing. This is a totally parallel track.
Okay.
This is a
Gotcha.
totally different technology.
Gotcha.
For this, so the quantum processor will be different, the quantum computer will be different, the software that the quantum computers will run are different. So this is not like a track that is going now, which will end up with this.
Right.
This will go here and will end up with a break, and you have to start a parallel track, which is the quantum computing track.
Basically, new kinds of computers.
Exactly right.
Which then will lead to lots of innovation in the world of pharma, in the world of just science. Science will progress very fast because of those computers.
Absolutely. And the current world of encryption, for example, I'll give you one specific example. The current world of encryption remains intact because the power to break encryption is so high, the power of computing. Quantum computing will do it in a flash.
You mean anyone's passwords can be broken?
Yeah. Encryption, how you encrypt your data, which is sent on an email, that can easily be cracked. So therefore, quantum has started from the defense sector, as you said in the earlier question. It started from the strategic side in the US, in many, many countries. And India today, Prime Minister has noted this well in advance, and that we want to be a player in this. He has set aside almost 9,000 crores of rupees for research on this area. And it is a collaborative effort between Department of Science and Technology, METI, and Department of Telecommunication.
Wow.
So it's an all of government effort to get to quantum computing, including working with some of the big names in quantum computing around the world to create the Indian quantum mission.
Okay. So it's just again years of R&D will eventually lead to some sort of
products and devices.
Okay.
So we will have quantum communication products, we'll have quantum computing products, and you'll have quantum devices, the chips that will power the quantum computers.
The best kind of defense is offense.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And in technology, there's no question of sitting still and waiting for somebody else to invent the future. We will be part of inventing the future and designing the future.
Effectively, the future is going to be about quantum, possibly cyber warfare. Like
Yeah,
when we talk about warfare in general, everything's going to go cyber.
Absolutely. And quantum is a very, very big force multiplier in that whole space.
Okay. How and when did this conversation come up about quantum?
The quantum is a known, like AI. It has been around in the academic circles for many, many years. But it is now beginning to become practical, with many companies investing in it. And therefore, like the gentleman who came on the show said, it is very important not to be on the receiving end of quantum technologies in the future. You have to be on the round table and saying, ये मेरा quantum technology है, ये आपका quantum technology है. जैसे हमने 5G में, in 5G, the world designed a 5G, we designed a 5GI, and the standards body incorporated the Indian standards to make that the universal standard. So whatever happens to the future of quantum, India's fingerprints on it will be there, will be visible, and should be there and should be visible.
Yeah. Something as simple as UPI. When you travel abroad, you get to know its value.
Yeah.
I want to ask you if there's any other technology that we've not spoken about right now, which you would like to highlight as, listen, this is actually
the
where the
India
focus should be.
stack, which is again Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision. And it's such a tremendous thing because you have identity authentication on one layer, the Aadhaar, then you have the UPI, then you have DigiLocker, which is where you can share your documents without taking printouts and hard copy. And then multiple layers on education, skilling, medical, health, all that stuff. The world's governments, so many governments want to implement that in their governments, in their countries. And in June, or middle of June, there is a whole global digital public infrastructure seminar or summit where there are going to be almost 30-40 countries from the world coming and saying, we want this technology. And what is amazing about this, which I think every youngster should know, a political leader designed this to solve a problem. What was the problem? That money that was being sent from the government, only 15 paise for every 100 rupees was reaching a citizen because of the leakage and corruption on the way they had to go to an office, show paper, stand in line. उसको बदलने के लिए प्राइम मिनिस्टर said we want to do directly accounts, Jandan Yojana accounts, DBT directly to the people's accounts. 100% money, 100 rupees sent, 100% rupees reached. That, to solve a government and our India credibility problem, has created this global standard fintech ecosystem where there are so many young Indians today creating payment gateways, payment applications, startups. So I think this is an beautiful example of how government and private young Indians are built together an ecosystem that the world today is respecting. Prime Minister Albanese mentioned it in Australia. The Japanese telecom technology minister mentioned it. It is absolutely powerful. The power of technology empowering people in India at this scale. The world is saying, "Arey wah, ye to theory mein padha tha pehle. Ye to, we are seeing it in real live action."
I have this vision of you walking into a diplomatic forum and the Chinese technology minister runs away from you. Does this happen?
No, I'm not. I mean, I don't think we are interested in anybody running away from us. We are more Prime Minister's views. Let them all run towards us and
Okay.
learn from us. We are very happy to share our experiences, whether it's vaccines, whether it is technology or DPI. We will share it with the countries that want to really work with India and improve the lot of the people.
Okay. Rajeev, sir, that's it. That's the conversation.
Thank you.
How
Thank
was
you,
this?
Very good. Thank you.
Like, very easy to talk to. You're such an easygoing guy.
Oh, why should I be easy?
I mean,
Why
that's,
do you think I would be difficult?
no, that's what you assume about politicians and
It's
cabinet
the
ministers
mustache
in
probably
general.
that gives the people.
No, but you're actually an engineer on the inside.
This is you get this type of a job, you have to be very fortunate to get it.
Yeah.
And when you get it, you should do what is right.
No, I'm completely in awe of you. Like,
Thank
I've
you.
become a fanboy at the
Thank
end
you.
of
No,
this
don't
episode.
be a fanboy.
No, I love you, sir. You're the
Oh, mat
best.
karo. Oh, mat karo.
No, but seriously, thank you.
Thank you.
It's very educative for me. We talk about all these concepts and people come on the show often and question the government and say that, oh, why aren't these things happening? It's very cool that you came on a podcast like this and you're speaking to not just me, but like probably the whole youth of the country that's listening
Perfect.
to this.
Thank you very much.
So really appreciate it. Looking forward to having a longer conversation with you the next time.
Perfect. Done.
So, okay. Lots of
Take.
luck and just genuine gratitude.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much. Thank you.
All I want to say at the end of this episode is that I'm hungry for another conversation with this man. What I want from you guys, the listeners, is feedback on this particular episode. I'm sure that Sir is going to scan the comment section as well. So you can give your feedback to him, tell him what you thought. I've always believed that TRS has an audience that's extremely motivated about aggressive learning, about aggressive knowledge accumulation, and about aggressive perspective building. So let's keep building our perspectives. Let's keep building the TRS story. Very, very grateful towards Rajeev sir for an incredible conversation. Very grateful towards MyGov for teaming up with TRS and helping us produce these incredible episodes. Lots more coming up from this non-political, political podcast series. Ranveer and the team will be back soon. And all these fantastic stalwarts from the world of politics will be back soon. Namaskar, Jai Hind, lots of love to you guys.